All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Monday Motivation, or as I like to call it, Mindset and Motivation. This is what this really is all about, mindset and motivation, because it's the most important part of your journey. Your mindset is what sets you up for success. And we've been having some powerful conversations each week. None more powerful than the conversation we started a few weeks ago about identity. I am the program. I'm not on a program. I am the program. And I want you to really internalize that. And fortunately, a lot of my clients are. I'm hearing from a lot of you that I am the program. And I want you to start saying that every single day. I want you to get that in your head. I am the program. I am not on a program. I am the program. I am that caterpillar going through the process of metamorphosis to become that beautiful butterfly. That is your future self. That is what you're creating, that beautiful butterfly. And right now, a lot of you are on, in different stages of that metamorphosis process. Some of you are just getting started. Some of you still have that caterpillar mindset. Some of you are halfway through where you're beginning to see that future self, and you can see that future self. Some of you can't visualize that yet, and that's okay. I hear that every week. I just can't visualize who I am when I'm, 50 pounds lighter. I can't visualize my life then. Well, keep working on that because it is the most important thing. If you can't see where you're going, when you get there, it's unlikely you will be able to stay there. I've seen that happen many times. I've had so many clients over the years say, Coach, I've lost 100 pounds twice. I've lost 100 pounds or regained it because when I got there, I just didn't feel comfortable in my own skin. I felt like I was in somebody else's body. You got to be able to visualize it, see yourself. See yourself there. That's the important thing. And then I want you to think about, where am I on this journey in terms of my level of commitment? Where am I on this journey and my level of commitment? I gave you different levels: the initiator, the participant, the investor, the owner, the master. Your job is to go from where you are to the next level, because as you start to deepen in your consistency, that leads to you becoming more invested in your own transformation, and that is what takes you to the next level, where you start to act from identity, because this is who you are. You do things because it's who you are. You don't do things because you're outcome focused. You do things because it's who you are. I get up and go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning because that's who I am. I am healthy, fit, and strong, and that's who I am. My alter ego is six-pack grandpa, and that 70, 80-year-old guy who still has a six-pack. Well, that drives me. Identity drives me. Who I am. That's why I eat based on how I feel, not based on what I see or what I crave. I eat based on how I feel. I eat based on the outcome that it's driving. Is it taking me closer to that person I'm becoming? And then you look at that person you're becoming, and then you extrapolate that from daily, weekly, monthly. What's the goal for this week? What's the goal for this month? What am I really after? What am I creating this week? What am I creating this month? What am I creating this year? What is my vision for the year? You break that down into your vision for the week, the vision for your month, right? This is how you create transformation, guys. Then you create those non-negotiables, right? You see the process? I've given you a framework. Identity, commitment, right? Non-negotiables. You got to have those non-negotiables. You got to anchor those non-negotiable habits daily. Why? Because it is what keeps you moving forward. It is what deepens your identity, your resolve, so that you no longer rely on motivation. You rely on identity. That is what you do. And now the next part of the process I'm going to give you for really wiring all of this in your brain so it helps to become more automatic for you. The 48-hour rule. The 48-hour rule. This is how you learn to anchor emotion before action, because emotion drives action. And you learn to wire the brain. Remember, everything we're doing here is we're learning to rewire the brain. So that is what we must practice on a daily basis. Because the truth is, right, here's the thing. You don't act from what you know. We don't act because we know things. We act based on how we feel in the moment. That is generally what we do. And if your emotions aren't anchored in identity, your actions will always drift. You'd always be off. So we got to practice anchoring those emotions before actions, right? Because that is really what drives you. But here's the most important part of this whole process. Your brain. And we don't talk about this enough. We talk about habits, but we don't really understand what habits really are. And the brain learns by association. So I want you to get this. I want you to listen to this repeatedly, because this is probably the most important part of your transformation, is understanding how your brain leads all of this, right? You see, neurons that fire together, well, wire together. And every time you repeat a habit, the same neural pathway is activated. Every time you repeat a habit, the same neural pathway is activated. You reach for a choice daily, you are solidifying that action in your brain. You're creating that neural pathway. You're strengthening that neural pathway. So if you perform that behavior again within 24 to 48 hours, those same neurons will refire, strengthening the synaptic connection between them, right? Neurons are connected by synapses or electrical impulses, right? They're not physical wiring. Your brain is wired based on neurons and synapses. Synapses are electrical impulses that connect things together. So you're literally wrapping those neurons, you're wrapping that neural pathway in myelin, which is kind of like an insulating layer that, wraps muscle tissue together. So that's really what you're doing. So that insulating layer makes the signal travel faster and more automatic. You see the beauty of this? This is how your brain works, guys. So every time you repeat that habit within 24 to 48 hours, this is what you're doing. You're strengthening that neural pathway. It's like when you're lifting weights, you're making that muscle stronger. You're wrapping that muscle tissue in that insulating fiber. So that's essentially what you're doing when you're repeating habits on a regular basis, right? So when you repeat those behaviors daily, or at most every other day, your brain starts to recognize the pattern as normal. Your brain will start to recognize the pattern as normal. It transitions from, here's what happens. That habit now transitions from the prefrontal cortex, that is the conscious effort, that requires conscious effort, to the basal ganglia, which is the automatic habit center. Right? So you see what happens? The more you repeat a habit, the more you repeat a pattern, it gets transferred from that area of the brain that is responsible for conscious effort to the area of the brain that is responsible for automatic habits. You see the beauty of that? That is how you make your habits automatic. But the things you're doing need to happen within 48 hours. Because you miss more than 48 hours and that neural pathway begins to weaken. 72 hours, 96 hours, and you see that neural pathway begins to weaken. That myelin insulation isn't reinforced, and the brain defaults back to older, more established patterns that are there. Think about the things you've been doing for decades. They're still there. They don't go anywhere. So that is why repetition is important. And this is how you anchor those non-negotiables, right? Because the 48-hour rule keeps the habit loop alive, right? We talk about the habit loop from, Charles Duhigg's book. You have a cue, you have a routine, you have a reward. That's the habit loop. Every habit is built around a reward, and consistency keeps that loop going, right? If you go longer than 48 hours, the cue, response, reward link breaks down. So your brain no longer expects the behavior. So the motivation signal, here's what that motivation signal is, guys. It's a dopamine hit. All right, so that dopamine hit doesn't fire. So your brain is not supporting you in moving forward. So this, in essence, resets your momentum, right? Emotionally and neurologically. Because every time you keep performing that habit, your brain is supporting you with a dopamine hit. That's the reward that keeps you moving forward, that keeps that pathway stronger. Guys, this isn't just about willpower. Your brain is actually working for you. And this is what I'm trying to teach you, to learn how to rewire your brain to help you to make your habits automatic. We've got to get to the point where we're making those transitions from the conscious effort to automatic habits. Your habits must become brush your teeth habits. And the only way to make that happen is for them to transition from your prefrontal cortex to your basal ganglia. From the part of the brain that is responsible for conscious effort to the part of the brain that is responsible for automatic habits. Those are the things that happen all the time. You don't think about brushing your teeth because that resides in that automatic habit center. You don't think about relearning how to ride your bike because that resides in that automatic part of the brain. That is what you're doing. That is the beauty of getting your brain to work for you. All right? So, neuroplasticity, this is a process called neuroplasticity and dopamine reinforcement. And this is about the brain's reward system, right? Especially your dopamine pathway, right? This gets strengthened when a behavior is rewarded predictably and consistently. Predictably and consistently. That is the brain's reward system. And when you start to affect the brain's reward system, guess what? That's what's going to keep you moving forward automatically. But that 48-hour window, guys, is very important, right? If you miss more than 48 hours, that dopamine feedback loop weakens. And your brain no longer anticipates the reward. And this increases resistance the next time you try to restart. So identity consolidation happens really through repetition, right? Identity is built through evidence, not intention. Identity is built through evidence, not intention. Each repetition of a non-negotiable habit, those habits I ask you to identify and start practicing. Each repetition of a non-negotiable habit is a vote for who you want to become. And when done within 48-hour window, your brain perceives continuity. This is who I am. This is who I am. That's what you're telling your brain. But when you skip multiple days, your brain subconsciously questions that identity again. Maybe I'm not that person after all. So you see, the 48-hour rule isn't about perfection. It's about keeping the identity bridge intact. It's about that consistency that helps to program your brain to be on your side, to keep you moving forward, right? So that's the important thing. And one of the ways, how to apply this in a practical way is to never miss the same habit 2 days in a row. Just really let that sink in. Never miss the same habit 2 days in a row. Think about those non-negotiable habits. And yeah, life is going to happen, but never miss the same habit 2 days in a row. Miss one workout, no problem. Go back tomorrow. Get back on track. Overeat one day, no problem. Reset with structure the next. Skip journaling, hey, no problem. But for something to become a habit, for you to continually make that habit stronger and get your brain working with you, you want to keep practicing those habits consistently, day after day, without missing 2 days in a row. Right? So that is what's important, and that is what I want you to think about as you're building this process that you're going through, and you're becoming that person that you're becoming. You want to do the things that help you to do that, right? So understand that every one of us, we have those days when we wake up and think, I don't feel like it today. I'll start again tomorrow. What's one day off, right? And that's where most people lose momentum. Not because you're weak, but because you let that temporary emotional feeling dictate your permanent outcome. We don't do things based on how we feel. We do things based on who we are. So when emotions are high, guys, I want you to really understand this. When emotions run high, logic runs low. I'll say that again. When emotions run high, logic runs low. Your brain's prefrontal cortex, that's the part that makes rational decision, literally goes offline when emotions are high. So when you're stressed out, tired, or triggered, your brain's prefrontal cortex goes offline. So you need to learn how to anchor your emotions before you act, right? Or you'll keep repeating the same old patterns, and thereby you're caught in the same cycle. You start strong, you hit resistance, that leads you to self-sabotage. You're starting over. And that's the process. And then you never get anywhere. But you see, when you learn to anchor those emotions, you stay grounded in your identity, even when life throws chaos at you. Because you continue to practice those non-negotiables. Why? Because they are non-negotiables. And that is the power of non-negotiables. That is how you anchor those habits in your daily life and start acting. Whether the emotions run high or emotions run low, it doesn't matter, right? You don't need to feel motivated to take action. You need to feel aligned. Because when you act from a grounded emotional state, your decisions match your values, your habits match your goals, and your results match your potential, who you're becoming, right? So typically, emotions drive actions. You need to get to the point where your emotions follows your action. That is the difference. That is where you need to get to, because emotion drives actions, but you need to get to the point where emotions are following your actions, because your actions are grounded in identity. And you're able to act no matter how you feel, whether you feel like it or not, whether you feel motivated or not, right? So you don't wait to feel ready. You act until you feel ready, until you feel aligned. That's the process. That is what you want to focus on. So how do you do that? I know it's hard. How do you do that? Let's talk about how to do that. Here's the first thing I encourage you to do. When those emotions run high, just pause and breathe. Step one, pause and breathe. When you're stressed or you have those emotional spikes, your body's alarm system kicks in. So the fastest way to reset that system is your breath. So breathe. Instead of reacting, just pause. Pause, pause, pause. Take 3 deep breaths. Slow in through the nose, long exhale through the mouth. And as you breathe, silently say to yourself, pause, breathe, then choose. Pause, breathe, then choose. Pause, breathe, then choose. Pause, breathe, then choose. That tiny pause, guys, I want you to, this is a thought interrupt. That tiny pause interrupts the impulsive behavior and gives your prefrontal cortex time to come back online. You see that? We call that a thought interrupt. And anytime you interrupt a thought, it disrupts that automatic pattern that is coming from the brain. Just one simple thing, just a thought interrupt. I want you to understand that. And that is the power that you have that you don't know that you have. Just a thought interrupt. Just interrupt that cycle. Pause and breathe. Interrupt the cycle. Here's the second thing I encourage you to do. I've mentioned this before. I want you to get in the habit of name the emotion. Name the emotion. This is psychology. Research shows that labeling emotions literally calms the brain. It's called, what is it called? What am I feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? What's the emotion? Am I overwhelmed? Am I frustrated? Am I lonely? What is the emotion? What are you feeling? Naming the emotion will calm your brain. Right? And we've done the research on that. So ask yourself, what do I really need right now? What do I really need? Do I need support? Do I need rest? Do I need progress? Do I need connection? When you name the emotion, you claim control over it, guys. You see the beauty of this? This is psychology research here, and this is how you take charge of your own psychology. Pause, breathe. Pause, breathe. Name the emotion. Name the emotion. Step 3, reconnect to your why. You see why at the beginning I said that this is one of the most important thing you're going to do? This is what gets you through those difficult times, your why. See, once your body is calm and your emotion is named, you're ready to act with intention. So you ask yourself, well, what would my future self do? What would Six-Pack Grandpa do? What would Six-Pack Sally do? What would my future self alter ego do? You start acting from the point of view of your future self. You make very different decisions. So you reconnect to your why. What would my future self do in this situation? Because your future self has already gone through this scenario. All right? Your future self is the version of you who already lives the life you want. They're going through this. They've already gone through this, right? You don't negotiate with excuses because they act from alignment. Right? You are where you are because you've gotten in the habit of negotiating with your excuses. But your future self doesn't negotiate with excuses. Your future self acts from alignment. So take one small action that proves who you are. Take one small action that proves who you are. What is one thing you can do right now that gets you aligned? One thing you can do today. You can drink water. You can go for a walk. You can eat the meal you planned. Let your action create the emotion you feel. Let your action create the emotion you feel. Right? Your action, as opposed to allowing your emotion to dictate what you eat, let your action dictate the emotion. You see the difference there? Emotion drives action, but now you're trying to rewire that cycle so that your action drive your emotions. This is powerful stuff, guys. I want you to really understand that. This is powerful stuff. So next time you had a stressful day, you're tired, you want comfort food, I want you to pause. I want you to breathe. I want you to say out loud, I'm tired, not hungry. I'm tired, not hungry. That's what you're feeling, right? And you pour a glass of water instead, right? That's emotional mastery in action. Pour a glass of water instead of reaching for that food. That's what you do. You let your action dictate the emotion. Or you wake up and you just don't feel like working out, you pause, you breathe, you visualize how proud you'll feel afterwards. You visualize how you're going to feel afterwards. You move your body for, hey, you can't do the whole time? Let's make it 10 minutes. You show up anyway. Doesn't matter. You going to the gym? Go to the gym. As you are, tired, bored, exhausted, one leg dragging behind the other, it doesn't matter. You show up anyway. You don't let the way you feel dictate what you do. You let your action dictate how you feel. That is powerful stuff. You get in the habit of practicing that, let your action dictate how you feel. You're there. That is the stuff that transformation is made of, right? That's what anchoring emotions look like. It's not about perfection. It's about awareness, control, and choice, guys. It's about awareness, control, and choice. So I want you to repeat after me. I don't act from how I feel. I act from who I am. I don't act from how I feel. I act from who I am, because that's power. That's emotional leadership. And that's how transformation lasts, because when you anchor your emotions, your actions become unshakable. I want you to understand that. When you anchor your emotions, your actions become unshakable. And when your actions are unshakable, your results are inevitable. You go around and you say, I am inevitable. That is the power that you wield. So your challenge for this week, your challenge is simple. Learn to anchor before you act. Before every non-negotiable habit, pause, breathe, name the emotion, and reconnect with your why. Pause, breathe, name the emotion, and reconnect with your why. I'm not hungry, I'm tired. Name the emotion. Right? Do it before your meals, do it before your workouts, do it before you reach for comfort food or distraction, and journal it, write it down. Notice how your choices shift when your emotions are aligned. That is the power that you guys have. This is how you use your brain to help you to move forward. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be present. So I want you to anchor your energy, act from your identity, and guys, the rest will follow, right? That is how you create the transformation you seek. You learn to let your actions drive your emotions, as opposed to allowing your emotions to drive your actions, because that's what they do normally. Remember the TEA triangle. Your thoughts drive your emotions, and your emotion drives your action. Now we're trying to rewire your brain so that your actions are now driving your emotions. When you get there, you will be unshakable. I want you to understand that. When you get there, when you achieve that, you will be unshakable. And your transformation will last. I hope this has been helpful.